Spring has arrived. In England, that means some warm weather is finally heading our way, and we are heading to the gardens. The main estate has many beautiful gardens to walk through, some more developed than others. We have a lot of work that needs to be completed and a lot of maintenance to attend to. But before we get into all of that, let's take you for a tour through all of the gardens at my tiny estate. So it's my honor to take you around the gardens because that's my cup of tea. So Dean has shown you so far the caretaker's cottage and the servants. If you haven't seen it, probably clicking some of the links that I'm hoping production is going to put somewhere here so you can go back and have a look. So we in the servants' courtyard, beautiful courtyard that we've made, and it's about to burst with hydrangeas. These are Annabelles, they're like massive white balls. And right now we've got the trees. These are Portuguese laurels, which they are in fully bloom. And I am going to confess that when we picked these trees, we didn't know that they're gonna have this beautiful, so packed with flowers. Smells amazing. Let me take you around. We're coming to the formal gardens of the main Georgian house, the main manor house. They're not that formal anymore. We call them formal gardens so we can sort of like divide the gardens and we know where we are. Now, there's something very interesting about these paths, and is that there are two paths. One for the people, the lord and lady that will walk around this path, will stroll over the gardens, and then they will have the secondary path that will have had a hedge, which will be to hide the gardeners and the staff that will be walking to the staff quarters, the servants' quarters and so on. So basically the whole idea was that they were never seen. They were there, magic happened, everything looked beautiful, but you will not see them if you were just enjoying the garden. Look at this incredible view. I'm just gonna go next to it and I'm gonna hang it. It's amazing, and it must be at least, I mean actually these are referenced in very, very old maps, so this must be at least 400 years old. We have an incredible amount of bluebells, and that refers to, if you have got so many bluebells in your English garden, it's referred to an ancient type of woodland because they divide, and we've got carpets of bluebells. And actually, which is very interesting, I recently heard that one out of 100 bluebells have got a different genetic that comes out white, and we do have some white bluebells, which is very interesting. I'm going to take you through to the woodland at the back. Now, something very interesting with like stately homes is that they planted a lot of rhododendrons. Now we still have got, you actually can catch them in flower. We have got a huge amount of rhododendrons, and we are very, very slowly going through a process of restoration of the rhododendrons. We are cutting them slowly every year by a little quarter, so we don't kill them and they kind of like revive and get in with more energy. Film right there, you can see that this is like the where it was planted originally. Look how big and how old this is. Something amazing about these gardens is the amount of wildlife that we have. I mean, you can imagine, we have purposefully, I'm gonna say purposely, but Dean loves this like wild feeling of nature. We try to control the paths, but we want to make sure that whoever lives here, you know, if it's like hedgehogs, which we have, if it's foxes, they kind of like do their own thing. You can see that this like goes in two different ways. To my right, there is a little door that goes into the working gardens. And we believe that this is how the staff will have come through the back lane of the back fields, through this door, through this back path, and then going back into the servants' quarters. So again, they were never seen from the manor house, the Georgian house, which is located just behind my beautiful, gorgeous cameraman, and it's just like right there. So you will have never seen them. So let's take you down here. So we're going down towards the main Georgian house. So the route that I'm taking you through is just we're going around the circle where the lord or lady will have walked if they want to have like a nice stroll around the gardens. They will have carried on and gone back to the main house. All of these that you see here, This is wild garlic. Now, we had it for ages and I kept saying like, oh my God, it smells such as garlic. And now it's in fashion to make things with wild garlic. Everyone goes around the woodlands to find wild garlic to make pesto and make things. So we got it in here, we're very spoiled, we haven't done anything. We'll have the time, hopefully next year, to kind of use something. Let's take you to the cottage garden, to the rose garden, to the working gardens. Behind me, if we go down that way, I will take you to the recently cottage garden that I started creating about like 2 years ago. But it's looking so beautiful. And then we have the gardener's cottage, the rose garden with over 100 David Austin roses, and then the working gardens and orchard. I'm exhausted just to say all of that. So much. So let's go to the cottage garden, which is becoming one of my favorite places. I came up with the idea, it was actually originally called the chicken paddock because we were gonna have the chickens in the old piggeries and it was just nice flat and grass. And I said to them, we don't have chickens anymore, let's have another garden. A garden that I can just grow from seeds and cuttings. I didn't want to spend any money on it. So Dean was like, I convinced him and then he got really involved and he's like, okay, well, if we do it, let's do it symmetrical. Let's do a nice round space. I feel like we did that the summer when we finished filming Saving the Manor. Because we were waiting for that to air and it's like, what do we do now? Let's do another garden. I might have to widen the path just to make sure that a wheelbarrow gets through it, but the idea is I do really want to not even see the path. I want to make sure that you immerse yourself into the experience of finding these little areas. I'm going to limit myself to 10 different varieties and that's where we'll be replicating throughout. So all of these are oak railway sleepers. Looking back, I probably wouldn't use them again. They are so heavy and we never realized that if they are original good reused railway sleepers, they have kerosene. So sometimes you can see them like sapping. But yeah, so this is the cottage garden that is really coming into its own. And look at it. I mean, you can just imagine it, Dean, can you? He's filming now and look at this. This is just all coming from seeds, guys, from transplanting. These are, I didn't move it that long ago. I've got some echinacea. All of these that you will see in here is because I'm imagining it in few weeks, that's going to be all with like purple flowers. All of these, this is actually an idea that I got from Chelsea Flower Show a couple of years ago, and I saw in an area they had these wild strawberries, and what it did is like they were using it as a ground cover, which at the same time stopped weeds. So I love it so much. Let me just grab in here. This is an absolute sand trap. Look, my mum loves it because she says they are the sweetest. Oh, they're yummy. But look, it's really taken over everything. So I am going to take some of these sections and plant them everywhere else because very nice, it stops the weeds. And then when I want to plant something else, I'll just like literally pull a section out and plant some stuff. This is the most incredible wall. I mean, you can actually feel the heat irradiating from the brick. So I bet at some point they were like having stuff growing in here. But I don't know if you will notice that in here, the layout that we did is very similar to the working gardens in the Dower house. We love the idea of a centerpiece that then you have got the symmetry of planting sections in the sides. Actually, Dean came up with the idea. I wanted something slightly different. I wanted basically everything planted and just a little sort of like path that it just went along. And Dean was like, no, let's do a circle, and you know. And I love that because he's like, I'm not that bothered about the garden, but then once I get into it, he really gets, and then he wants to kind of like put his input. And I think that is when we become a really good team. So the focal point at the end of the garden, that would have been to make the lines on the lawn when it was cut. Is extremely heavy. I cannot even tell you. We moved it in between the two of us and it's very heavy. So much so that we decided to make it as a garden feature to never have to move it again. This garden, I literally spent zero money more than actually our working hours of like, you know, shaping it. Everything is being taken from either cuttings or self-setting, you know, like seedlings that have grown and like, you know, I just moved them, from cuttings that I've done from other plants, which is, I'm even more proud of it. So let's carry on walking towards the working gardens and the back fields. So we are kind of completely opposite to where the main house is. So behind the cameraman is the main house, and we kind of carry on walking deep into the gardens. We have got the most beautiful rose garden, and if I could only pass the smell through the video, you will have smelled it before you even saw it. Oh, it's amazing. We have got here 4 varieties of roses. Again, I think you will have noticed by now that we use the same variety, but we kind of like multiply it, and we plant quite a lot of it. We have found that for us, this is a very good planting that we do, which is like, don't overcomplicate yourself. If you love one plant, plant that, but instead of like once, plant 10 plants. You know, the impact is so much more strong. The setting here is beautiful. So again, you can see again, we did the same, we did symmetry. We had a cross path, and then we had this old rope, Victorian rope hedging that we used as a divider. Now, the idea here with the roses was that we were gonna go from a strong pink to lighter, lighter and white. Now, I feel like I'm in the set of Bridgerton under the roses, but this is 4 years trying to train the roses to have them very full. If you're interested in roses, we've got 3 varieties planted in here. English rose, which is this one. Then we have got Olivia rose, and the smell of this one is absolutely, oh my God, it's my favorite, it's incredible. Behind me is the gardener's cottage, and this looks like it comes out from a storybook, doesn't it? You are literally surrounded by gardens. You've got the rose garden in front of me, the cottage garden to my right, the working gardens and orchard to my left, and behind the cottage is the 4 more gardens of the main house. This is one of the cottages that when we bought the estate, we knew that there was something there because we could like barely see some bricks, but we didn't know that we had this cottage. It was absolutely covered in ivy and brambles. Everything, I mean, where we're sitting right now in the rose garden, where Dean is in with a camera, this was like wasteland. This was like all shady. We had like a lot of like trees, but they were like little thin trees that they have like overgrown, you know, and like brambles, and they all tried to kind of like grow very fast to kind of reach the sun. It was horrible. And then as we actually came through here, which that is an incredible, I think there's a picture of Dean on the top of that wall, cutting ivy, you know, because he went over to kind of like to slice it open, and then we were able to pull it. Do you remember? We were so naive. We were doing the tiniest of fires here in our like outdoor fire pit, which he was like around here trying to burn things. And we realized soon enough that that was just not gonna do it. So we spent weeks just like pulling. And when a lot of people says, how do you get rid of ivy? Guys, it's hard work. It's literally, you have to, I remember with a flat spade, going through like that just to not damage the bricks and trying to pull all of the roots, the suckers that kind of get into that. And then we were just like pulling with our hands like all the roots, so much so that I thought that I did some damage into my bones, because I remember for weeks when we were going to sleep, we couldn't really kind of move our hands. If you follow me, I'm going to take you to the working garden and the orchard. These are the working gardens. This is the most exciting. When we actually bought this place, you could not walk through here. Literally, these were like, the brambles were up to here. We reseeded with grass everything, and we laid all of this section up here with raspberries. In hindsight, this is the wrong location. It's a great location because it gets a lot of sun, it produces a lot, but we wanted to have espalier trees at the same time on pots, you know, so they were like nice and high. And the idea was that we thought everything was going to stay quite low, and then you will see the trees, but they're growing like to another level. We have got our beautifully designed by architect Dean Poulton raised beds. Now, we had a little bit of a learning game here. We have got 6 raised planters, and originally when we did it, we had a different type of wood, and we soon realized that when we started to filling it, the wood was warping. It was like basically belling out. So we found, just before COVID, we bought 200 old oak railway sleepers. Let me tell you, these are the heaviest sleepers that you can find. We actually, just to pull one, it was extremely excruciating pain. We made sure that when we were buying it, I double checked that they were gonna have a little crane so they can basically just pull them over the back wall of the estate. Yes, they came without it, and they basically left it in the fields at the back. And I called the lady and I was like, literally, this is not what we talked to about. You know, we're paying all of this money. And she said, look, there is COVID happening. There's more important things for you to tell me what we should have with the things. And she hung up on me, and I was like, we have to move 200 and something. These are so heavy, it's impossible to do. So we did it in 2 days because the lovely farmer said, like, don't worry, as long as it's out by tomorrow. And we were like, this is 200. No one could help us because they were like, everything was like the bubble. Do you remember the bubble of like your household? You could not like see anybody. That was hard, that was painful. But now that it's in place, it was so worth it. So Dean designed it in a way that it is high. So the idea was always that if Dean's grandma, you know, wanted to kind of come and help, and she's like sitting in a wheelchair, she will still be able to reach. And also what we learned was that when we originally did like a big square, is that we had to climb in. So we designed this kind of like U-shape raised planter, so you could just basically just go inside and then reach every section without having to jump in. I occasionally do jump in just because I like to be working straight up, but you don't need to. That was the lovely thing. And also it's at like your waist height, so you don't even need to bend at all. The only thing with that is the amount of soil is in here is insane. So there are 2 planters that we slowly sort of like filling with like, you know, grass cuttings and stuff, you know, just so we don't have to pay that much money to get more soil brought in. And actually over time it drops, you know, the soil. So all of these is echinaceas. I love them just because you see them like absolutely covered in bees. And I've got some carrots and I've got a lot of stuff growing, which is fantastic. So the idea with this working garden was always to have a section of growth of vegetables and things that we could come and use in the kitchen, and flowers, because you need flowers in a garden. You know, I know that a lot of people is just all about, you know, self-production, but for me, you know, flowers are so important. And actually even more important now that once I need to kind of get some flowers, and I went to the flower shop and it cost me an absolute fortune for the most simple bouquet of flowers. And I was like, if this is costing £50, how much is costing all the flowers that I'm growing? You know, for every time I make a bouquet of flowers for guests. This is probably our most productive and favorite raspberry. Dean loves it, Dean's mum loves it, and it's quite unusual. I think a lot of people doesn't know that they exist. They're called golden raspberries. So they are gold when they are literally in the yellow. I think your mummy's been recently picked them all. But I think if you see, they kind of basically go to this beautiful gold yellow, and they're very sweet. They taste like raspberries, but they taste a little bit different to a normal red raspberry. This gives you raspberries for months. I think last year we were still picking in, was it November? It's incredible. I mean, we're in June and we're already picking, so that's how many, 6 months of picking raspberries? That's amazing. Now behind me, we have got an access to the back, but you know, we're leaving this for wildlife, and it is actually really pretty. You see a lot of like birds and they just kind of go and grab the seed. We probably have got some foxes as well, I think, because I have noticed, and who knows what else we have, but we just leave it for them to enjoy. But look at the back. I mean, I just love this. This was one of the things that Dean and I lived more in the countryside. We actually live over that fields. And when we came here, we just love the location of the estate. It's located in the town. in the highest point of the town, but then all the back is fields. You're in the countryside. So for us was always the idea that, you know, when we are old people and we cannot drive, we can just still walk and then go to get shopping and not needing to drive. You were still like within people, but still within yourself. Does that make sense? So that was like the big appeal, and having these big gardens. If we keep going across the beautiful, incredible raisins, and I'm gonna praise them because it was so much work to kind of get them to where they are. We have got the orchard. Now, the orchard, we were lucky to have an original orchard with very old trees. A lot of them have died ever since. We have tried to kind of like get them going. We did what Montidon says to do, which was like to cut them to reinvigorate them, but some didn't make it. So we have been trying to plant others next to them, hopefully to a point that, and this is dead. I mean, probably we can just, this is like super dead. So hopefully at some point we will cut this one to the ground and the other one will just basically take over on the right location. We decided to, again, do the same that we're doing in the Dawa house, which is leaving the sides wild and then with a path in the middle. The path in the middle here is much narrower than the one that we have in the Dawa house, but yeah, I love it. It's very nice. I don't know, I just feel like I'm in a different world when I'm walking around here. And the shade of fruit trees in the summer months, you come here and it's just so cooling and relaxing. We are walking back towards the rose garden. So you can see like we have tried to connect the gardens in a way that your eye is borrowing the view from the next garden. So it always looks bigger than it is, but you still feel secluded within the garden that we are creating. That's always the aim. So you will see that we tried to create this arch. We put an arch and we were trying to shape the holly bush so eventually, you know, it will be all nicely shaped and then you will walk into the rose garden. And the original design that we had, and that's something at some point could still happen if we ever get the funds, is that the idea was that just behind me, as you come here, this is the focal point that you see. So right here, we were going to have a stone trough with a water feature. They will just come out of the stone wall, and then you will hear the water. And so we thought like that would be so nice. You're in the rose garden, you're hearing the water. As you're coming from this section, you're seeing there's a focal point, and then, you know, it's just like, we can still do it, but that's the plan. We always have a plan, you know. I mean, this is 4 years in the making, this rose garden, and I feel that this year is going to be the year. It's had 4 years to really put the roots down, and it's covered in roses. Oh, so now you have seen all of the gardens that we have on the main estate. That's not counting the Dawa house. From the formal garden, through the woodland, through the original paths, back into the stables courtyard, and then we walked up into the cottage garden. I showed you the gardener's cottage in the piggery, into the rose garden with the amazing smell, and then up into the working garden and the orchard, showed you back the fields at the back, and then we walk back into the orchard and we ending in the cottage garden. So you can understand why we're trying to keep on top of things, and that by that means keeping on top of the grass, leaving areas wild. This is our excuse to help with nature, and also we don't have to maintain that. And it's a constant battle, you know, so that's why like normally in the summer our renovation progress slows down because there's so much to maintain. I hope you enjoyed it. So if you have any ideas, any suggestions, like the video and subscribe and tell your friends. You know, you might know somebody that has got some ideas or can be inspired by these gardens. Thanks for watching.